Welcome back. We're making baklava today, the traditional style. We got the walnuts in the food processor. We're pulsing for at least 5 seconds. You can see we have a countdown clock today showing you our prep time. And we are going at double speed here, so that clock is ticking twice as fast. So we got the prep time down to about 14 minutes here. And we're showing it to you in about 7.5. So we've got the walnuts ground. We've added a half a cup of sugar and a teaspoon of cinnamon, mixing it all together and setting that aside. We're using a butter substitute today that's trans fat free. I find it tastes just as good as regular butter, and it's healthier. So your call on this. Used about 2/3 of that pound of Smart Balance. We're cutting the filo to fit our foil pan we're using today. I find I can use a foil pan 2 or 3 times before I start putting holes in it. Now we butter the bottom of the pan and start adding the filo. It does help to pre-cut all your filo for the size of the pan before you start, which is what we did today. It does help to use fresh filo if you can find it in the refrigerated case. Frozen is okay, but it's a little dicier when you take it out of the freezer, making sure it doesn't stick together. If you have to use frozen, just make sure it's been thawed in your refrigerator for at least a day. On the bottom of the pan, we do 6 or 7 layers, or more, depending on your taste. Our recipe calls for 6. And you butter each layer. Once we get 6 layers down, we put in our first layer of walnut mixture. We're dividing it into 3 sections, the walnut mixture. So this is number 1. And then we add filo in between the layers. We are in a remote area here, and we're only able to find frozen filo, so there are a few cracks in this batch of filo, but all is forgiven once the butter is on and everything's put together. No one will be able to tell. So I think we put 2 or 3 layers down before we put our next walnut mixture. Here's layer number 2. Our other video on the site has a chocolate variation of the baklava. This one we're doing today is the traditional. Other countries along the Mediterranean will use different types of nuts. Even almonds can be used, chopped almonds, or most often you would see pistachios. And there are various ratios of filo to nut. Our recipe has a heavier nut to filo ratio. Others, like from Iraq or Lebanon, who will use the pistachios, you'll often see a lot more filo, and it creates a crunchier texture. You have 10 or 11 sheets on the top and the bottom, and less nuts. This is the traditional Greek style that you find most often in Greece. There we have the final layer going in. And we will add filo to our heart's content on the top. I think we're going to do about 7 layers here. You can add layers until you run out of filo or run out of height of your pan. You don't want to go over the pan too much to make sure you don't drip in your oven. We're finishing it up here now. And it looks like there's just enough butter. Now we're scoring it, pre-cutting it, to aid cutting it later, because you would make quite a mess if you tried to cut it after it's baked. So this is a real good way. Just make sure, especially when you're using a foil pan, not to cut all the way through, as to poke a hole in your pan, and that can create a mess in the oven and on your countertop later. So just go easy. The main thing is just to get through those top layers to create a guide for when you cut later. We've divided it into 15 squares, and then you cut it again diagonally to create a diamond shape, creating a total of 30 pieces, which is nice at a party, because if someone just wants to have a half a piece or a taste, they can just do that. Now it's going in the oven, 350 degrees for 40 minutes, but we'll check it at 35 minutes to make sure it's not overdone. While it's in the oven, we create our sugar syrup with 1 cup of sugar and a half a cup of water and a few drops of lemon juice. You stir that all in, let it cool, and then you add it to the top of your baklava, carefully in between the cracks so it doesn't get the top soggy. And then it's ready to eat. Enjoy.